Yo, yo, how's everybody doing? I want to talk PLYM. I want to be a little bit more descriptive than I was yesterday. I was purposely a little coy because I was still buying stock this morning. And yesterday I bought a ton of stock, and Friday I bought a ton of stock. And now it's moving away from me. So there is no reason to be coy. I could just tell you what I think's happening. Um, I have about a 60% position here. And the way I look at it, of course, is your downside is to about 2170. Now it's trading 2245, but when it was trading 2225, where I was building the position, um, that is a 55 cents downside, which is about 2% risk. 2% on a 60% position is 120 basis points. So I'm risking 120 basis points. And my upside, I think, is for a deal somewhere between $24 and $26 a share with a small 35-cent spread to that. What do I think now that we are at Tuesday and there's been no news? I think it is incredibly bullish. Now, again, big caveat here, go shops do not work. In fact, if you ask ChatGPT or you try to find go shops that work, I really only found one that's worked in the last 5 years, which is Alaska Communications. There were two others that had superior bidders during the go shop. One of them walked before finalizing a deal, so that was an official fail. That was Ad Torrent, which I was involved with. And then the final one was a success because the original buyer, Tomo Bravo, matched the superior bid, and that went for like a big premium, like 20% over what it was trading at. But other than that, they don't work. Okay, go shops just don't work. So we're sitting here on Tuesday afternoon with no news. And let me walk you through the time frame of how this usually works. So usually, if this fails, you find out the day after the Go Shop expires. You can ask ChatGPT yourself. I found 10 examples of Go Shops that failed, and the company press released the failure. 9 out of 10 happened the day after. One of them happened a few days later. It was like a Wednesday failure, or Wednesday or Thursday failure, and then they announced it on Monday. Other than that, 9 out of 10 all came the next day. Secondly, with this situation, there are a few different times that you have to understand. So the Go Shop ended at midnight on the 23rd, which was Sunday, but the cutoff time is midnight to night on the 25th. What's the difference between the Go Shop cutoff ending time and the cutoff ending time? The cutoff ending time is for when you have to sign a deal in order to get the lower break fee. The Go Shop cutoff time, ending time, I know these words are all confusing and it's circular, is when companies are allowed to negotiate, and they have to have had a preliminary bid by the end of the Go Shop time in order to qualify for the superior price of $14 million. So they had to have lobbed in a bid by Sunday night, and they have to have a signed bid by tonight. Provided, however, there could be up to 4 business days delayed to the cutoff time if the original buyer is negotiating after hearing of the superior bid. What does all that mean? There's one final twist to it all. The merger agreement says they have to file the preliminary proxy promptly, but no later than today, November 25th. And there's no delay allowed for Go Shop negotiations, cutoff time negotiations, whatever. It must be filed. And in the preliminary proxy, there will be background section, and the background section will talk about the Go Shop period. It's supposed to include all information up until the day of the proxy. So if the Go Shop failed, it will be in the preliminary proxy. If the Go Shop succeeded, they will have to at least say that they've gotten a superior bid today when they file that preliminary proxy. What do I think is happening? So this was a highly contentious situation, okay? If you read the press release when this deal was signed, nowhere in it does management say that they did a thorough process and this was the best bid that they received and that the board unanimously recommends it. All it says is one line that says, we believe this provides definitive and immediate and substantial value to shareholders. The words definitive and immediate are doing a lot of the heavy lifting there, okay? Second of all, They didn't have to do a go shop if they fully shop this business. Okay. Most businesses do not have go shops. For instance, when Sage was sold, and I was so sure that BioMarin would come back over the top, there was no go shop in there. And when we got the proxy, we know why. BioMarin was included in the process, and they decided to walk. We will never know why, but they decided to stop bidding in May. Okay? Then the lack of a go shop there should have told me that BioMarin was given an option and BioMarin declined. I still thought BioMarin would come over the top, and they didn't. So, whatever. I lost money there. That sucked. Here we have a go shop, and it was put in for a reason, and I think I know why the reason is. In the merger agreement, it says that this buyer signed an exclusivity agreement. Not exclusivity, signed a confidentiality agreement with Plymouth in early July. Okay, the 6th Street 13D was in the middle of August. It's my belief that they were in exclusivity with this buyer and that 6th Street was never allowed to participate in the process or anybody else. If that wasn't the case, they have no need for a go shop. And finally, how come we haven't heard anything yet? If the go shop failed on Sunday, they would have been ecstatic to tell us on Monday morning that it failed, and most likely put out the preliminary proxy on Monday, or certainly this morning, because the sooner they get the preliminary proxy out, the sooner it goes definitive, and the sooner they can close this deal. Okay? We are now Tuesday at noon, and there's no proxy. So I do think there is an overwhelmingly likelihood of a chance of at least one superior bidder that happened during this go shop. I've always thought there would be at least one superior bidder. 6th Street is the most likely one, but I think many people could be interested in this. I think if you look back at the conference calls over the last 2 years with Plymouth, you will see that they value their business internally at 6.5 to 6.75 cap rate. Okay? They're paying 6.75 cap rate for properties right now this year. And 6th Street paid somewhere between 6 and 6.5 cap rate for the Chicago assets, though that's more murkier because they also bought a preferred and they got some warrants, and all those things have value outside of the Chicago assets. Finally, comps. No clean comps here, but there are a few industrial comps, and they all trade at much higher valuations. Much higher from a price to FFO basis to a cap rate basis. The cap rate basis is somewhere between a 5 and very low 6 rate cap rate. And the FFO basis is anywhere between like 15 and 25 times FFO, while we're trading at like 11 or 12 times FFO. Okay? What can this sell for? Well, I think it's being sold at $22 a share at a very high 7s to 8 cap rate. Okay? And if you use a break fee of about 30 cents a share, and then you include all the change of controls for the management teams, if you're going to fire the whole management team, that soaks up about $1 of value, okay? The good news is there's a lot of dollars of value to be had here, okay? And 6th Street at 24.10, yes, they wouldn't have had to pay the 30 cents, but they would have had to pay all the change of controls for management. So that was all baked in there anyway. I think that this business is worth a 7 cap rate, okay? Maybe even 6.75. At 7, you get to $25 to $26 a share, okay? And that includes the dollar slippage. We are at 22 here. So there's a big gap between 22 and 26, or 22 and 25, to create value for private equity firms. And I think you'll have multiple people come in. Now, again, really sticking my head out here because go shops don't work, okay? There's been dozens of them in the last, or I wouldn't say dozens, probably at least 20 since 2020. And there has been one that's successfully worked, one that has had a superior bidder that had to be matched by the private equity firm, and then a third that had a superior bidder that walked. And other than that, nothing, okay? So if it fails, it fails. At this point, at $22.45, I'm not a seller, and I'm paying 45 plus 30. I'm paying 75 cents for it. And if I think my base case is a $24 deal, that will get you to $23.70 or so with the time value of money, maybe even $23.65. So it's $1.20 up, and it's 75 cents down. it's still only pricing in like a 40% chance or so of that happening. And I'm just way higher than 40%. I mean, honestly, I'm at like 90%, which again is crazy sauce. I understand that. Clearly, the market is starting to come to realization that something's going on because it's trading well over the deal. And remember, the deal is not 22. The deal, it should be trading with a merger spread. So it should be trading 2170-ish, 2175-ish at the most. So that's where I'm at. I think we're going to get news this afternoon after the market closes. It could be as late as after hours, so after 8 p.m. Eastern. But I don't think we'll have to wait that long. I think we'll get a press release that there was at least one superior bidder. I don't know whether they will have already signed a definitive agreement with that new superior bidder or if it's going to be a multiple day process with the cutoff time extending as they negotiate with the old bidder. I will say the old bidder is pretty weak. They only have $1.5 billion fund, or the first close of their fund is going to be $1 billion, and this is a $700 million check. So I don't know how much higher they can go, but they're stealing it. So they probably could go up to $24. I would say the absolute worst price we'll get is 23. I don't think a board can agree that it's a superior deal if it's less than 23 because you have closing risk, you have signing risk. They're going to it'll push the deal out by a few months. Anything less than 23, I don't think they would deem a superior bid. So if there's only one other bidder at 6th Street and they bid 23, you also then would have to have the old buyer not want to match 23. And I think they would want to match 23. So I think we'll get to 24. I just don't know how much above 24 we'll get to. Super excited to see what happens. Turk out.